Hello and welcome to Ironhead Forge. Today we have a great project here. This is a Wakizashi that I picked up from a dealer, and he estimated it to be from the 14th, 15th century. As you can see, it's been very mistreated and allowed to rust heavily. But what we're going to do today is clean it up, remove all the rust we can without changing the profile that the original maker created. Let's take a closer look at this blade. What we really want to do is inspect it for cracks or any fatal flaws. Now, the heavy pitting around the handle is common with these very old swords, katanas, wakizashis, due to the moisture that builds up inside the handle. And even though they took great care with their blades, this thing is still, 400 or 500 years old. Now, on the back of the spine, you can see some defensive marks where they've used it in combat. We're going to try to preserve those. So far, I'm not seeing anything that's fatal to the blade. No major cracks. Pretty good sized pit right there. That one's gonna hurt us a little bit, but still not fatal to the blade. But with the depth of it, I doubt we're able to get it out all the way. Here you can see a great deal of chipping along the edge of the blade. Apparently whoever had this saw quite a bit of action. There again, being 400 to 500 years old, it's almost guaranteed that it was used in combat at some point. There's one little spot right there, as you can see, that looks like it could be a crack. We'll keep a close eye on that area, around the spine. Other than that one spot, nothing really just stands out. Okay, now it's time for what I've been waiting for ever since I received this beautiful blade in the mail. Time to reveal the beautiful mahogany underneath. Right here is the pit I was talking about earlier. I'm going to try to get as much of it out as I can without changing the profile of the blade. Today we're going to be working on a 2x72 Ameribraid belt grinder. The belt we'll be starting out with is a 220 grit, moving very slow. My main focus here when using the belt sander is just to remove a top layer of rust, not really to dig into the blade any at all, because I really do not want to heat this thing up very much, ruin the temper, or change the profile. I know you ain't gonna want to sit here and watch me grind this thing for the next 3 or 4 hours, so we're gonna speed this video up a little bit. Rust from mahogany seems different than that of modern high carbon steels. The consistency of it seems more like baby powder. Alright, our time with the belt sander is about finished. I don't really want to take any chances on putting divots in it or anything like that. Even though we're moving at a slow speed, it's still faster and easier to destroy a blade with a belt sander than it is by hand. So now it's time for the part that every bladesmith loves, hand sanding. We're going to maintain the lines of this Wakizashi by wrapping 220 grit sandpaper around a piece of flat bar and just working back and forth. We've got our Wakizashi clamped down to a piece of 4x4 tubing. This allows us to put quite a bit of pressure onto the blade without bending, breaking, or anything like that. Like I said, this is a 400 to 500 year old blade. You can see the heavy rust that forms in the sandpaper. Every once in a while I'll just brush it out with a piece of tissue and it falls right off. Just like before, how about we go ahead and speed this process up? If you notice, we were able to get quite a bit of that large pit near the tip out. We could have taken it all out, but that would have changed the profile of the blade, and that's not something I really wanted to do. Blade is come along very nicely. I think it's about time for us to take a look at it. See what it looks like at this stage. Let's zoom in for a closer look. Now that we can get a better look at the steel here, you can see areas that look like cracks, but are not really cracks. They're D-lams from when the maker originally created the billet out of small blocks of mahogany. This is pretty common on many Japanese blades, where had they folded it more times, it would have prevented this. But when you get to the older blades, 400 or 500 years ago, even older, you'll see this more often. Now all this is subject to the maker, the technique used, the location it was made in Japan. There's so many elements involved in this, it could be one or all. Now it's back to the block sanding. Alright, now let's take a closer look at what we have up to this point. Something I was very happy to see is right here you can see the maker's mark. On Japanese blades, these aren't so much as marks as they are the signature of the bladesmith. And even with the poor condition this signature is in, it's still possible it could be identified. Well, you know what time it is now. Back to hand sanding. Only this time we're putting in our Trojan Horse Forge vise and really working on the fine grits and fine detail of the blade. We're starting out with 220 grit sandpaper. Now let's hit the fast forward and see how it turns out. Alright, now it's time to work on the spine of the blade. And one thing I don't want to do is remove all these defensive marks where the Wakizashi was most likely used in combat. Let's see if I can get you a close-up of the defensive marks I've been talking about on the backside of the Wakizashi now that we have it sanded. Beware, if you start doing this kind of work, your hands are going to look rough and they're going to be dirty no matter how many times you wash them. Alright, now it's time for a short dip in the ferric chloride and boom, there's the hamon. That is the one thing you always want to see in a beautiful Wakizashi or any Japanese made sword. Make sure to like and subscribe so you can catch part 2 where we fit this with nice antique mountings. Until then, keep the fire burning and the hammer swinging. Have a good day from Ironhead Forge.